Hi,
Hello.
can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you as well. I love that you
Amazing.
have a huge mirror behind you.
Yes.
It looked like you got a coworker there for a second. I'm like, who is that?
Just me, myself, and I.
Is that a strategy to keep yourself a company? You're like, oh, I actually have somebody watching for me.
A little bit, yeah. Keep myself
Is this
accountable.
is this also you shoot some of your stuff here, right?
Yeah, just in this room here in my apartment. It's not the biggest space in the world, but somehow I deal
Sure.
with it and make do, and it works.
That's amazing. Thank you for coming in today and thank you for taking your time. And is it 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock in?
10 a.m.
Cool, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, speaking of the studios, I know that that's where you shoot some of your client work and your YouTube videos, and I
Yeah.
know you do locations. So how does when a client contacts you, what is like the differentiator, like, oh, this is I can get it done in my home studio,
Yeah.
or like, I have to do a location for this client?
Yeah, so when we send them a brief to fill out, essentially they can tick whether they want like a still life in studio, or if they
Mm,
want like a location lifestyle vibe, or if they're after like a model in like with a plain backdrop. So we don't do
mhm,
any like model work here. It's just like the still life work. Sometimes people will tick both, so then it just becomes part of the conversation where we're like, okay, cool, like you want both, let's do both, and this is like the packages that we can offer. If
mhm,
they take both, we might do like a slightly discounted rate if they're ordering like lots of content.
mhm.
But yeah, essentially the brief is everything. It just allows us to start that conversation.
Yeah, and I know you work with a small team. When you first started working with other people's for a project, did you find out it's pretty easy to start working with people, or did you have to kind of find your groove or a system how to collaborate together?
Yeah. I think like so we have like we work with I guess multiple kinds of creatives as well as like our project manager Kiri. So like for example, when working with Kiri, when we brought her on board, there was definitely a learning curve in like trying to get a process of I guess communication, and how we work together and what kind of like how we want everything to go. So I think that took honestly like 5 months to get
Oh,
into
wow.
a groove of like this is how we're gonna do things, and
Mm,
it's crazy that yeah, when you're dealing with inquiries and there's such different projects,
mm,
there's a lot involved, like in all kinds of pre-production. There's so many steps that you have to take sometimes, and so many elements to think about, especially when you're doing location shoots. You've got models, location, hair and makeup,
mm,
the whole pre-production of like the creative direction, but usually we'll have Kiri
mm,
manage that entire process
mm.
of onboarding the client, so we can
Yeah.
kind of like step back and
Mhm.
just try and do the creative.
Yeah.
um, and then yeah, then it just comes down to like scheduling our time with other creators. We have used other photographers and videographers on some projects, and it's just like sending them a brief and making sure that they're on the same page, they understand the branding of the client.
Mm,
And we're big on organization and communication. We don't like last minute things.
mhm.
So the more organized we can be, and the more solid our pre-production, the better.
Yeah, totally. And I love that you also work with other videographers and photographers. So not just like limiting everything in-house. Do you want to
Yeah.
talk a little bit more about like what type of project you were outsourcing a photographer or another videographers and for what reasons?
Yeah, so it might be because we just need another person on hand,
Mm.
especially for video. I'm not a videographer. Like it's just
Mhm.
not something that I'm too shaky with a camera. I can't do it.
It's a real thing. Like you need the strong arms.
Yeah, especially when you're holding like the gimbal and
Mhm.
everything. I also think like to be a videographer, you need to have a really, I think like creative eye in terms of how the shots mush together in post
Mhm.
production. I tell Alistair all the time, like, I don't know how you do it because he can just see how things are going to transition from one scene to the next. And so
Mhm.
he'll do like certain movements when
Mhm.
he's filming. I'm like, how do you know how to do that? Or like, what, like, how are you piecing this together? So like my mind isn't trained to do that for video.
Mm.
So if we, yeah, need like a second shooter, we'll hire another
Mm.
videographer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and then for photography, usually it's if like I can't do it, which is actually rare, or it's a project that like I'm not really keen on,
Mm.
but we still want to like take care of the client. So like
Yeah.
maybe they're doing video with us, but it's not a
Mhm.
project that kind of interests me.
Mhm.
So we might have another photographer jump in and do the job.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I love that you still have the flexibility working with different type of client, even though maybe it's not something it's in line with what you wanted to do. But now since you have a team and then you can like actually outsourcing other people to do this, so you don't miss
Yeah,
on projects, which is
exactly.
smart. Yeah.
Yeah, we just want to take care of the clients and make sure that, because I guess at the same time it's, you know, it can be hard for them to find people who are the right people. And if they
Mhm.
love your work and they're like, oh my God, I really want to work with you, but you
Mhm.
know, we're not necessarily interested. And that, you know, as creators, we're not interested in every project that
Yeah.
comes
Yeah.
our way. I think
Yeah.
people forget that.
Yeah. That make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Um, and then I know you primarily using all Adobe softwares, and also like videos, premieres, and photos, Photoshop, Lightroom probably sometimes. But do you happen to use any other softwares or any like plugins in your creative process that is not like the typical Adobe suite?
Not for editing. Yeah, we literally use for all post production, Premiere Pro, Lightroom, Photoshop, and After Effects.
Mm.
The only other one I use, it's not really for editing, it's more so for sifting, is a program called Photo Mechanic, and
Oh,
I use that for mainly my lifestyle shoots because I have
so
so many
many.
photos to go through, and I find that with Lightroom, because of
It's clunky.
it's clunky and it's so slow. um it just lags so much, but with Photo Mechanic it's so quick and you can zoom in really quickly, make sure everything's in focus, and just
Mm,
quickly delete and keep the ones that you want to keep.
mm.
So that's definitely been a really big improvement to my workflow in terms of the editing side.
Cool. And I feel like since you have been a few years of in business as a team, I wonder if you now know that when you book clients, you know how many days or how many weeks you will reserve for the project so you don't overbook yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you kind of like get a sense of that pretty smoothly when you're working with clients? Or do you kind of in your head be like, oh, this month I only want to work with like 2 to 3 clients, they're in a bigger project? Like how do you kind of pace yourself for booking?
It's definitely like a struggle sometimes. Like we've learned that our maximum number of shoots a week is 2.
Mm.
If I have to do 3, I will, but for me, that's really pushing it.
Yeah.
Um, and so I try and have like every second day off shooting. So I'll
Mhm.
usually shoot like between Mondays and Wednesdays or Thursdays are usually good shooting days for me, because that's
Mhm.
when I have most of my energy. But I think too, like over time, we've just learned how much time we need to dedicate to a certain project. But we've also learned that we need to have buffer days. So these are
Mm,
just days where it's like, in case a project goes overtime, which honestly it always happens. And when that happens, that's when burnout starts to
mm,
creep in, because all the schedules just become out of whack.
mm,
So I find that having buffer days has been really helpful, because it's like you can use that day to catch up on anything that you need to. Because it's when you're doing a project, especially still life in the studio, you don't always feel creative. Like sometimes I can get through 5 photos out of a 10 photo shoot. And I
mm,
have to like have a break and wait like another day or so to do the next lot, because I'm just feeling I'm not feeling it.
mm,
And so that's usually where projects can go over time. It's just due to how creative I feel.
mhm,
So yeah, I think it's important to learn how you work as a creative,
mhm.
and what kind of timeline that you need, and how you like how much time you need to deal or allocate to a project. And I think you just learn it over time,
Yeah, I think that's,
but it's hard.
yeah, it's hard to like juggle, and
Yeah,
also it takes times over time. You wouldn't figure that out um,
exactly.
really quickly. Um, I'm curious, how do you what is like because I know you're also doing YouTube. It's pretty regular. You post pretty regularly. How what is like the percentage of your time you delegate to your YouTube channels out of
Yeah.
a week?
Usually I like, at the moment I'm trying to upload at least twice a month. I
Mm,
would love to do more, but it's super time consuming to do YouTube. Usually it takes me about 2 days of energy to produce a YouTube video. So
mhm,
I'll usually like after this, for example, I'm going to be filming for YouTube. So
mhm,
usually Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays I allocate to YouTube at the moment. Um, and that way it's like the end of the week, I'm not having to be on emails on the weekends. I can kind of just focus on my own content without having to worry about like client work or other people kind of messaging me during the day.
mhm.
But yeah, it's at least 2 days for a video is what I have to allocate. So
Yeah,
doing that every week amongst client work, it's a lot of work, but
challenging.
it's
Yeah,
totally worth it. I love YouTube. I've
yeah,
loved the channel so much.
yeah.
But yeah, lots of work.
Yeah. And then is this your year 3? How many years you've been doing YouTube?
uh this oh my god, what year are we? 2022. Just
Yeah.
over, like, coming up to a year and a half, I think now.
Okay.
Yeah.
And would you say, like, have you seen a change since you first joined YouTube? Just purely like in your industry, have you seen like other more photographers or videographers that has joined YouTube and then creating all these videos now? Or have you seen any changes since you joined?
um Honestly, like, not really. I think because YouTube is such a commitment,
Mm-hmm.
and I like, you kind of see when you search product photography, you kind of do see the same people pop up.
Mm,
And I do see other people on Instagram be like, oh, I'm gonna start a YouTube, but it never kind of they don't commit to it long term. And I think it's
mhm,
because they realize how much work is actually involved in
mhm,
producing a YouTube video. And I think that if you're going to do YouTube, there's no point in like just doing one video and
yeah,
stopping,
yeah,
because it's just not going to work,
art. Mhm,
unless you're like, I don't know, you're doing a really trending topic and the video is going to go viral. But in, I think, product photography, it can be hard to make a viral video,
mhm,
that goes viral in like a week.
yeah,
um, but yeah, I haven't seen too many like new people on there. But yeah, I think it's just because it's such a commitment, and you have to be really consistent with it to make it work, especially at the beginning as well.
Yeah, would you, if you were having to starting all over again,
Mm.
hypothetically, in 2022 for YouTube, what are what are the tips you would share with people if you were starting all over again?
I would go in with like a really solid plan and like batch create maybe like, I know, at least 4 videos at the same time. So you can have a month to 2 months worth of content ready to go.
Mm,
Um, Batch creating content is probably the easiest way to go about starting YouTube so that
mhm,
it doesn't feel like it's too much effort.
mhm,
Um, Having like a video editor would probably, I haven't got one yet, but it's something I should definitely look into because just editing the videos can take hours.
mm,
Um, and so that can save so much time as well if you're wanting to do YouTube long term, is having someone to edit the videos for you.
mhm,
I'm just a control freak and sometimes I need to like do it myself. But yeah, that and look at your YouTube SEO. So it's
mm,
kind of like Google SEO, or how like hashtags work on Instagram. You don't want to be trying to rank for really large keywords because you won't come up at the like the start of
ah,
the keyword.
mhm,
So ideally, you want to rank for small keywords so that
mm,
when someone searches that, your video has a high chance of being number one or number two, or at least just in that first page, so that
mm,
people can actually find you. The other strategy that I took as well was I knew that if I wanted people to subscribe, um,
mhm,
I had to have content for them to, I guess, like binge. Because
mm,
from my own viewer standpoint, if I'm looking at YouTube videos and I find someone, but they have no other videos and I can see that they don't post often, I'm probably less likely to subscribe.
mhm,
So I think a strategy as well, it's like it's being consistent and showing that you are going to create regularly, that you're committing to it, that you've got heaps of content for people to just like go on. Once they find your channel, they're like, oh my God, there's so much content here. I'm just gonna like subscribe and watch all their videos.
mhm,
So that's why I think at the beginning it's important to pump out as much content as you can, obviously quality
mhm.
content.
Yeah.
um, so that yeah, people can binge watch your stuff and subscribe and then continue to be a viewer.
Yeah, I love that. Uh, these tips. When you mentioned, find good keywords that is not super large, being used for millions of times. What are the strategy or tips you can share in terms of researching good keywords for your videos?
Yeah. So I use two things. One is called Keywords Everywhere, and the
Mm.
other one is called TubeBuddy. Um,
Oh yeah, I've heard of that one.
yeah. So for TubeBuddy, it can give you like really good insights as to what kind of keywords are trending, how many times people are searching it, like the pool of videos as well, like how many videos are part of that pool. Um, and yeah, I think it's just taking time to research like, yeah, what keywords are trending at the moment, and also maybe like longer tail keywords. So if you target just like product photography, obviously that's going to be a huge keyword. So
Mm,
you might want to do like, I think one really popular one for me at the start was vinyl backdrops for product
mm.
photography. I noticed that there wasn't a lot of videos in that pool. And I think that one did quite well. And then also like skincare product photography as well, did really well for me at the beginning.
So when you're starting out, what is like the pool of numbers of videos? Like, say if the vinyl one had maybe like a 10 videos, is that good number, or you want to like for like 100 video? Like, what is like the range of the numbers of videos?
It's that like thousands, like, yeah, I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's, yeah, there's definitely quite a few videos in like each keyword.
Mm,
Yeah, I can't recall off the top of my head the numbers.
yeah,
But it's just
that's
like, I
okay.
guess, comparing the different keywords to see which
Fair.
one you can target more of. And I find usually it's probably the longer tail keywords that are best to target at the beginning.
Yeah, that's such insightful tip. Um, so for speaking of the YouTube, we're actually working together for a YouTube.
Ah,
It's coming up. I don't know when it's going to be published. It's going to
next
be February.
Sunday.
Oh, nice. This is
Yeah,
actually
next Sunday.
that's really cool. I'm really excited. And I noticed like while working with you, you're pretty organized. You're sending me like the script and then like, your ideas and through Notion. And I know you use Notion as your as like a planning tool for
Yeah.
your other projects as well. So I was wondering if you have any, I just started using Notion, but I feel like it's such a big tool. You really have to like learn how to use it to actually fully maximizing the potential from Notion. So I wonder if you have any good tips to share with people that how you utilize Notion to planning your project and even share that with your client and you guys, it's sort of like a Google Doc, you can work on it together. I love that.
Yeah. So I use for our pre-production, we actually use a program called Milanote, but for all of my YouTube videos, my course videos and stuff, I put it all on Notion because it's so much, I feel like I can see everything really clearly. But I
Mhm.
actually took a template from a really big YouTuber. His name is Nicholas Crystal, something like that. He's a videographer,
Oh,
photographer.
is it the bald guy?
No, he's got
Okay.
I think he's German. Oh my God, I can't remember what nationality he is, but he's really big on YouTube and he creates like just amazing videos. He tells like just incredible stories through his
Mm,
videos. I find him really motivational. He shares
mm,
a lot of his like workflows and processes and things like that. And yeah, he did a whole video on Notion and he has a template. So
mhm,
I used, and you can literally like, as soon as you click on the link, it kind of integrates with your Notion
mm,
and it's there already for you to use. So I've
mhm,
basically taken that for my YouTube and my course, my like when I'm planning Instagram reels or TikToks, I'll use
mhm,
that kind of template to map everything out. Um,
mhm,
I think he also has one that is like a to-do list, like a daily task list. And
mm,
I use that as well, where I can just map everything out. I've got all my upcoming shoots and stuff, just so I can see everything at a glance.
mm.
So that was honestly like the easiest thing. I haven't actually I didn't need to set up anything. I just took a template and like
That's
implemented it
good.
and it's been
Is the
great.
template paid or is it for free for
For
his?
free. Yeah. Yeah,
Nice.
completely
Do
free.
you mind share later on when you find his name? Do you mind like share his
Yeah, of
name? So
course.
we'd love to share with people who are
Yeah.
watching this. Yeah,
Yeah,
that'd be
I'll link
great.
it to you.
That's awesome. I'm glad that you are also finding like inspirations from other YouTubers and getting
Yeah.
motivated from other people. So I feel like YouTube is such a community, it has like a lot of well, obviously there's always like a negativities, people
Yeah.
commenting bad things, but overall I feel like it's a pretty positive community. It's a very different community with other social platforms. It's less of
Yeah.
a I don't know, it's you actually have when you put out a video, you actually have to, like you said, put a lot of energies and time into your videos. So it's not just like a
Exactly.
snap of a photo of my something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's it. It's like the community just appreciates how much work goes into a video. But yeah, like you said, then you have like, I think for YouTube, I like Instagram, I probably only received like 2 hate comments over my whole entire time of being on Instagram.
Mm,
Whereas YouTube is different. I've received quite a few hate comments. I delete them. But it's that I have found like people can be really critical.
yeah.
they're like, you're not a professional photographer. I'm like, I
Yeah.
hope you didn't get paid to do this. I'm just like, oh my God, like, go away. Like, people can be really hateful.
Yeah, because they are ghosts. They probably don't have like, anything on YouTube, so they don't really care when
Yeah,
it's a hateful comment.
exactly. I always go to their profile and it's like subscribe for like the last 10 years and there's like nothing there, or it's like videos that are, you know, just random videos.
Mm.
I find they're actually mostly like older men who have commented like hateful things on my YouTube videos. So
Mm.
there's definitely a pattern there. um, yeah.
Well, I wonder if anybody else who is on this call have any questions so far for Amanda regarding like the course, or like her YouTube channel or her Instagram account or anything at all by far before I continues. Any question, you can just unmute yourself. Um, is there anybody left a question in the chat? Oh, sorry. It's my phone connected with my two computer. Whenever that happens, it's
The same
everywhere.
thing happens to me.
Sorry about that. I think somebody left a comment that thanks so much for doing this. I love to know Amanda's tips for a new product photographer. I own a PR firm, styling photography branch to business. I love to know what would you look for in the first potential clients you reached out to. Thanks.
Yeah. So I guess if I'm pitching to someone, we don't really pitch anymore, to be honest. We're very lucky to just have really long-term clients that we can always go back to. But I think when you're looking at people to pitch to, there's two kind of ways you can go about it. Firstly is if the business doesn't have any kind of professional content. I think every business needs some sort of professional content to be able to grow a successful product-based business. So you could definitely target those kinds of people. The only issue with that is they might have a low budget. But if you're the other way too, is that if you look at businesses who do have professional content, you know that they have invested in that, that they're most likely willing to set aside budget for photography. Because I know not every business kind of prioritizes that, or they don't see it as a valuable thing, especially if they are in the startup phase, because I get that budget can be quite tight. But yeah, when you're approaching people, I think the way that I go about it, I connect with them on Instagram first, just so I can get to know their brand a bit. I might watch their stories, yeah, like their posts, leave some comments, just things like that. And then when I actually go to email them, they kind of already hopefully remember your name popping up on their Instagram or whatever social media account you're communicating with them on, so that it's not entirely like a cold email. It's like, oh, I connected with you on Instagram already, like love what you're doing. You kind of personalize the email a little bit.
Yeah.
But I find that it is a little bit more of like a longer term strategy. I'd probably like do it for a couple of weeks before I reached out and pitched. But I think that you have a bit more of a chance of actually getting a response if you've already communicated with them on socials and showed your support for that brand. So that's the way that I usually approach pitching. Is it's all about building a relationship instead of being like, hey, you don't know me, but here's my website, or like, here's my stuff, I want to work with you. I think it's important to show interest and support first, and then be like, hey, I love all of this. I love what you're doing. I love your brand. I want to work with you, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I actually love like the way you said it's like all about building a long-term relationship. It's not just like some quick like a quick project together, and then you just like
Yeah.
bye. And I remember the first time we talked is, I think you sent me a DM and introduced yourself, but I think I've already seen your stuff, and you were asking if we could do I forgot what were you asking, but like back then I think I wasn't exactly doing that, but I remember
Yeah.
like you mentioned it, and later on I was like, oh, actually, would you want to do a course together? We have
Yeah.
it's next year, and that really worked out, and then leads to like the um doing a YouTube video together. So I love that,
Yeah.
how that relationship that kind of started from a DM, but it's not like the first time we talked, we sealed the deal for a project. It's just like planting.
Exactly.
So I love
Yeah.
that strategy than just like being really aggressive. Hey,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah. And I think too, like the more that you can focus on those long-term relationships, because now that like 4 years into business, so many of our bookings come from repeat clients. So it's really easy for us to be like, hey guys, like, do you need any content? We're booking for like March or April. And we get to know the cycle of how often they need content as well.
Mhm.
And it doesn't feel weird reaching out to them, because we know that people who run a product-based business, like they're so busy, and if we can think ahead for them,
Mm.
that's a huge part of our service, is that we want to make sure that we take care of our clients.
Yes.
So I know that a lot of people, when they approach pitching, they might be like, oh well, I feel salesy, like I don't want to annoy people. um, but I think if you think about it from the perspective of like you're actually doing the other, like the brand a service by continuing to reach out to them, by
Mhm.
thinking of them and paying attention to them,
Mhm.
I think brands appreciate that. And that way you don't get into a situation where the brand is like, oh, I need content next week because we have this new product.
Mhm.
So you can kind of think ahead for the brand. And
Yeah.
yeah, and having those long-term clients, it's honestly so much easier to have consistent bookings.
Yes.
So long-term relationships, I think, are everything.
Yeah, completely. I completely agree. I just need to let my dog out. I don't know
Yeah.
if you can hear her venting in the background. You really want to get out?
She's so cute.
So sorry. She wimps sometimes, so I have to like, she's a very needy dog. Um, so I think we have some other questions regarding like your YouTube. Tiffany asked, how has your business grown through YouTube? Does you get more photography clients or more students for your courses through YouTube?
Yeah. It's so I basically started my YouTube to support my course.
Mm-hmm.
And that was on the advice of like the course I bought on how to create a course.
Mm-hmm.
They have a huge YouTube channel. And they have literally proven that having organic YouTube content is one of the best strategies to help promote a
Mm-hmm.
course.
Yes.
Um, I mean, I also love YouTube, so it's also like a passion project for me to be able to do whatever I want creatively and still help other people who may not be able to afford a course, still learn about product photography.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of like booking clients, there's definitely been some inquiries who have come through and they're like, I found you on YouTube, or I've watched your YouTube content and I'd love to work with you. But I wouldn't rely on YouTube as a strategy to solely book clients for
Yeah.
photography. Um, yeah, I think Instagram is still the number one way that we book clients
Mm-hmm.
for projects. But I think YouTube has been a good complement to that as well. So they can actually see the behind the scenes and things like that.
Yeah. Can you hear my dog bark?
I think she's scratching or something at the door,
No,
maybe.
Can you hear her bark? If you cannot hear her bark, that's okay. If you can
Not
hear her
really,
bark,
no.
okay, that's good. That's good. I was because she was barking. My husband came back home. She barks. So I was worried it's noisy for you guys. If you can hear it, that's great. I love those YouTube questions. I have a follow-up question for you. How do you define what's should be paid inside of your program and what should it be actually published on YouTube for free?
Yeah, I struggle with this on a daily basis. So I find that like so all of my Photoshop tutorials, like all the editing, I don't really show that on YouTube because I think that that's kind of where photos can really be, I guess, lifted and enhanced
Mm,
is in
mm,
the editing. Like obviously your styling is super important. But I think your styling depends on your creativity as a person,
mhm,
instead of like, watching videos and whatnot. But yeah, I don't really share editing on my YouTube, and I won't share pricing either, like how to, like I do have a video on pricing for photography, but I don't really go into the how,
mhm,
because I think that there should definitely be some knowledge that like I've worked hard on, and I've spent hours researching. I've spent time figuring it out for myself, that
mhm,
I keep that inside the course. But yeah, I think on YouTube, I'm happy to show more behind the scenes because I think people enjoy that. But there are still things that I won't go in depth on.
mhm.
Um, I try to keep my YouTube videos quite short as well. Otherwise, people just lose interest if they're too
Yeah.
long. So I guess if people want like more in-depth insights, then
Mhm.
that's where the course comes into play. The
Yeah.
other thing too is that like I am available to answer questions, for
Mhm.
my students inside the course, as opposed to like if someone DMs me, they're like, oh, like, how do I price up my work? Or like, how do I do this? And like, well, my energy has to go to my students first because they're paying students.
Yeah.
Um, and you only pay the one cost anyway, but my time goes to my Facebook group,
Mm,
where there's questions in there every day for me to answer. So that's the other thing too, is that I can give ongoing advice and support to my students, to
mhm.
help them with questions they have along the way.
Yeah. I love that answer. I love that you like mentioned what's important to you. Like the editing part is actually quite important that you don't show every single details on your
Mm,
YouTube channel necessary. And then instead you show like a lot of behind the scenes, how you set up certain stuff and the stylings and those things. Like you said, it's very subjective to your personal taste, your personal aesthetics, or to your brand. Um, so I love those tips. I honestly felt like there aren't a lot of YouTubers who are in sort of like my aesthetics for align with my brand's aesthetics, who are doing like videos or photographies or like a home decors videos on YouTube. I wish there's more because I
yeah,
felt like the YouTube, the video on YouTube lasts so many years. Your videos from year one probably still get a lot of tons of
yeah,
views. You'll probably still get like Instagram followers or like bookings or somebody through that first videos instead
yeah,
of your IG post from even like last week. Probably people are not going to look at it ever again.
yeah,
So the life cycle is much longer in YouTube, which means for brands like us, it's a better strategy to spend money on YouTube videos instead
yeah,
of spending tons of mm, the the cost of returns. I think it's higher, but the problem is there's not a lot of quality YouTubers or who are doing this same
this style.
the stuff or the styles I or my brand is in line with. So I wish there's more people like you on YouTube.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you're so right. It's like a lot of my videos from like just over a year ago, one just is over 100K views now, and like a lot of those videos they just keep getting views, and
Mhm.
they do really well. And I think for YouTube too, it just takes time for videos to build up. um, but yeah, like my videos from a year ago still do really well today,
Yeah.
and I think still attract more people to my channel. Yeah, the life cycle is like it's evergreen content. And I think, yeah, like even some brands I've worked with though, they they haven't really understood that. I think there was one brand, and they had given me a discount code, but it was only valid for a week. I was like, that's
Mhm.
not enough time to test out the
YouTube. Yeah.
audience. And um, it's like you need more time in order uh, to build, I guess, trust, and to let that video build views. Like it just wasn't enough time. So I think the long term strategy of YouTube is really important for brands to understand.
Totally. I love that you mentioned it. Somebody asked, do you have a strategy for hashtags on Instagram?
No, not really. I pretty much use like the same hashtags all the time. I have like hashtag sets that I go to. Like I have a skincare one, I have a hair care one, I have one for my course, and I might have a few different versions. But yeah, I think I don't really do a lot of hashtag research, to be honest.
Mhm.
I think I think that I think reels have been really great in terms of getting reach,
Mhm.
as opposed to like relying on hashtags in actual posts to get
Right.
reach. I just think reels are an incredible way to attract new people,
Yeah.
and it's a creative way to like present your content as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm definitely the wrong person to ask about hashtags.
Hashtags now on Instagram, they actually suggest you only post like about 5 hashtags. No longer 30 long hashtags is not going to work. It's
Yeah.
not going to do well for your post if you're still punning on 30 hashtags. So my suggestion is just find a very relevant one for your
Mm.
post. Don't like get like really generic ones. Just the relevant one for your post. Maybe just like up to 5. Um,
Yeah.
that's like
Yeah,
the
I
newest
think so.
strategy.
Yeah,
On
absolutely. I think too, like, I as a consumer on Instagram myself, I rarely actually go through hashtags. If anything, I'll actually go through reels now,
Mm,
and just like go to the reels tab on my explore page and search through or just watch reels. Um,
mhm.
that's usually, yeah, what I'll do is I won't even look at hashtags anymore.
Do you have a real creating strategy or process, like how you start from a reel? Do you start from saving your favorite music or sound, and then with that in mind, you're like, oh, like I will do this one match with that sound. Like how do
Yeah.
you start?
Pretty much. So I'll just go through the explore feed of reels, and anyone that I feel like I could relate somehow to photography, or if I think it's just like a funny reel, I'm like, oh yeah, cool, that would be fun to do. I'll save that sound.
Mhm,
I then use Notion to map out all the sounds that I want to actually create for.
mm,
And I'll basically map out like the text I want to do, how I want like the reel to go, whether I want to do transitions. So
mm,
that when I go to create it, I can batch create a heap of reels in a day.
mm.
And that'll last me for like maybe a month or so. That's
Oh, I
usually
love
how I
that.
approach it.
I love that you also use Notion for mapping out your reels, um,
Yeah.
the content. And do you use Notion for your YouTube script as well, or do you use a script?
Yeah, I always use a script now. I just find it so much easier, and that way I ensure I don't miss anything, because I find that if I talk on a topic in front of the camera,
Mhm,
just impromptu, I might get to the end of it, or when I'm editing, like, oh, damn it, I should have said that, or like I should have
mm,
included that.
mm,
So by scripting everything, I am ensuring that nothing's missed, and that all the details, especially with so many of my YouTube videos are sponsored now. And so I have to draw up a script anyway, so the brand can review it. So it's just it's just been an easier process to do it that way. And then I put my teleprompter on my camera and I just read it, and it's so much quicker.
Yeah, I love that. I love those tips. I think that's all the questions I have today. I wonder, let me see if I got some other questions right here before we wrap up. I think that's all the questions I have for today. I think for before we're letting you go, any tips?
I got a
Oh,
question.
hi. Oh yeah.
Hey, what's up?
Hi, Michael.
Hey,
Hey.
Amanda. Nice to meet you. Thank you
Yeah,
for
you too.
thank you for taking time to share all this information with us.
No worries.
I kind of just like I don't know, just kind of wanted to pick your brain. I know you teach a lot through like YouTube, and you have courses that you have for people to follow you, but do you find more joy like teaching people like other creators, or do you find more joy like actually doing the shoots for the brands, or is it kind of like a mix? What makes you happy between those two?
That's a good question. If I was to lean towards one of them, it would definitely be teaching. I think it's because I came from a background of corporate, of like being in a job that I hated, and like being in toxic work environments. And so I know the people who want to take photography full time, they just want to live their passion, and they want to be able to make money from something that they love doing. And that's something that I'm very passionate about, because I've been there, and I used to want so badly to have my own business and to have, freedom in my day. And so I'm really just passionate about helping other people to get to that point too, because I know what it feels like. I definitely still love doing, the actual projects, but we have cut down a lot since like probably 2020, because it just becomes too much and you creatively burn out. It becomes creatively too much to actually spit out content every single day. It's like you feel like a machine. So having the course and the YouTube and being able to just teach people and support people, it provides, I actually find more fulfillment in that, to be honest, than actually doing product photography as a job.
That makes sense. It's kind of the sense that I got just when you were talking about it, but it's cool to hear you say that.
Yeah, I've never said that on any platform, so you're the first to hear that out loud.
Any other questions, Michael? Is that your only question?
I don't. Oh, you know what? Okay, so I was while y'all were talking earlier, I was going through the stories from Amanda on your Instagram, and I saw that you do like for deliverables for clients, you do a gallery through Pixieset, and you'll allow them to like either download or until they meet their however many deliverables, and then if they want more, they can purchase the additional assets. What made you kind of like go the direction of kind of like doing like giving them a gallery to pick from versus maybe shot listing like specific shots that you're going to achieve for them? Just kind of curious like into what made you want to go that route.
Yeah. So in terms of like our lifestyle location shoots, or if we're doing a model shoot in the studio, usually there are just so many photos that we end up taking while we're on set. So it's like for a location shoot, I could be delivering anywhere from like 1 to 300 photos. And so for me to have to sift that down into say like 30 photos to have the fun, like for me to have the say in what the client should get at the end of the day, actually takes too much brain power for me. And I think it's just easier if it's more efficient if the client can just choose the ones that they love. And then I basically just move forward to retouch those. But for my still life shoots in the studio, just like you know, a photo of a skincare bottle or something like that. I won't do that. I'll usually just deliver, like, say, the 10 photos, because the time commitment to those projects is usually a lot longer than, say, a location shoot. And the creative, I guess, mental power you have to give to still life shoots as well, is greater than that of like location shoots. If you're working with a model, you know, the model does half the work and they can, you know, just turn, and you can get great shots and your shot's done. Whereas with still life, you have to try and be so creative to stand out and to make the photo look beautiful.
Yeah.
And I think as well, like, when clients look at still life work, I feel like they probably analyze it so much more than, say, a photo of a model, because a model can just look beautiful either way, put some makeup on them, do their hair, you know, they pose the right way and it's a beautiful photo. Whereas when you're doing still life, like, I feel like people judge it so much more because they're expecting it to be this beautiful, creative photo, and they can pick it apart a lot easier, I guess. Whereas when you're looking at a model, well, if you pick apart that, it's kind of like, you know, are you judging the person's face, or like, you know, so I think that when I'm doing still life, it's more time efficient for me to be like, okay, these are the 10 photos that we're doing. If you want more, like, we have to do more pre-production to come up with more creative concepts. Whereas, yeah, location work, it just operates a little differently, if that answers the question.
Yeah, that makes total sense.
I've also learned from like other photographers, when you do still life photographies, you probably already have agreed on certain numbers of set ahead of time with the client. And normally one set, you can realistically only take one or two good shots from one single sets, and after that gets repetitive, so there's no really reason to take more shots anymore. So I feel like that also kind of helps you to determine, oh, this is the photo for this set, because you've already agreed number of sets. That, because you also the client probably know that the sets takes a bit of a preparation and pro productions, and that's also a lot of work. So
Yeah,
I feel like that also determines that, and instead of using models, like you said, they just turn, they do things, then there's the variety of shot you can get from that.
Exactly, totally. And yeah, it's like the still life, like, you can only get so many different angles from a scene, and then it's like, okay, this is boring now, let's scrap that and do a whole new scene. And like, that in itself is just so time consuming. Like, even cleaning up after a scene and putting everything back and being like, okay, let's work with a blank canvas again and let's do the next shot. Yeah, it's really exhausting and very time consuming. But yeah, when you're working with models, it's like you can use, you know, the whole body. You can include the face or not include the face, change your outfit, change your hair, slightly change the background, and you get more diversity. Yeah, it's just like two different kinds of shoots.
Yeah,
That's really cool. I think we'll probably look into Pixie Set for our deliverables, just because I mean, even when we do still life, we still have extra shots that pop up that I think would be cool. But I think you've done a really good job of outlining how you could stand to maybe monetize those extra images a little more and give the client like a little bit more freedom to pick additional images. So I think that's really dope.
Yeah, and yeah, if you're taking more images, even for your still life shoots, you know, it doesn't hurt at all to be like, hey, like, you know, I've got this gallery, there's, you know, instead of 10 photos, we took 15 photos. So just select which ones you want. And then, you know, if you want to purchase more, you can purchase more. But yeah, it's such a great way to upsell your clients. And it's part of the reason we actually love location shoots, is because often you can upsell, you know, another 10 photos, because there's so much content, or they come back to the gallery like 2-3 months later. Like there's so much, oh my God, there's so much content that we have that our clients haven't bought. And so I could easily go back and be like, hey guys, if you need more content, like I've just uploaded all your past content to this gallery. Here are the packages if you want to purchase any more photos. The options there if you want it. So it's a really easy way to like make a little bit more money off your past shoots as well.
Mhm.
Wow, that's awesome. I never even thought about that.
Yeah.
That's so sick.
Yeah, because all the content, like we take so much content in our shoots, and it's like, so like majority of it just goes to waste. And if they're good photos, you know, why not go back to the client and be like, hey, you need new content, here you go, like feel free to check out. And yeah.
I love that strategy. It's just like very proactive instead of waiting for people asking you, and then you're like, oh, hi. And it's also part of your like good service, right? Like what you mentioned before, that a lot of times you want to think ahead of the client, and then actually saving not much time and maybe like energy, even money, by just doing like simple gestures. And
absolutely. And I think people actually appreciate it. Like I said before, I think I know I felt like this when I started. If I was to like pitch anything or go back to a client and be like, hey, do you want to book in again? I felt like I was being salesy or annoying. But having worked with you know, bigger brands now and learning how they operate, like for one of our brands, they're a global company, and they have so much going on in their business that we now are like, okay, we finish a shoot and we're like, all right guys, I know that you're going to want to book in again, let's start producing the next shoot, let's start working on that, just because I know they're so busy. And so when you work with businesses like that more, you realize like you're not coming from a place of sales or being annoying, you're actually providing a really good customer service to that client who would probably appreciate you thinking about all of that for them. And I think what I've learned too is by having the full pre-production, the full end-to-end, like you do all the pre-production, like we organize all the models or locations, you know, we try and map everything out for the client as much as possible to make it as easy as possible for them. And I think that is an advantage as well to have in your business. And that's what keeps people coming back, is how easy is it to work with you as a creator or an agency or whatever kind of creative business you are. People just want easy. They want to, you know, have the content and they want to take it and post it and move on to the next thing. So if you can make that process as easy as possible, as streamlined, you know, that'll keep them coming back.
I love that. Love that. Well, thank you so much. And I think that's like a really good end of this call. And then we also hit like an hour on the clock. And thank you so much, Amanda. I really appreciate your time today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you. And I will be reaching out with like that YouTuber's name so we can share like his Notion templates if anybody else wanted to adapt that. I know I wanted to see. So well, I'm excited for our YouTube video coming out on next Sunday. Yeah, perfect. Well, thank you so much for everybody else who joined the call today. Thank you, Michael, always showing your lovely face. Such a good supporter. Thank you. Have a good one. Bye, guys.
Bye.